Welcome to Quail's Knitting Nest. My name is Joy, and this is my nest. First thing today, I am going to address the elephant in the room. I'm going to read this because I made a prepared statement. I don't want to forget anything. There have been many protests here in the United States the past few weeks since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am a white, middle-aged woman, and I live in a white bubble. I have only a handful of friends who are black or people of color. I also have only a handful of friends who are in law enforcement. Thus, I don't claim to know much about either of these groups. I have learned a lot in the past couple of weeks, and I am still learning. But I am a Christian, and as a follower of Jesus Christ, I can say what I do know from my perspective. Our God is a God of love. Our first priority is to love God with all our hearts. Out of the outflow of that love, we love our neighbors as ourselves. Love in action is treating others as I would have them treat me. If I don't want someone to kneel on my neck, then I should not kneel on someone else's neck. If I want someone to pay me a living wage and respect me, then I should do the same. We are blessed, not because we deserve it and not to lord it over others. We are blessed to be a blessing. We are to share what we have been given. The light of Jesus is in us. We don't cover it up and keep it to ourselves. We shine the light of Christ into a dark world. We are privileged. We should not use that privilege to oppress others, but to lift them up. To that end, I offer a couple of things. First, I have read 2 statements by black knitters that I recommend you read also, to get a sense of their perspective in a way that you may not have if you are like me, a white woman. I will link the statements below in the show notes. One is from Gaye Glasspie on her blog, Gigi Made It. And the second statement, is from Dana Williams Johnson on the Modern Daily Knitting website. Please, I do recommend you read these statements from them. Also, I want to share with you a new video podcast that I've started watching just this week. It is done by a black woman named Constance. The name of the podcast is Stitching Over the Days. Again, I will put a link in the show notes if you'd like to take a look at it. I first heard of Constance on Fruity Knitting a while back when she was featured as one of their Knitters of the World. And I have seen her knitting online since then. She makes beautiful things, stunning sweaters and whatnot. But I did not know that she had a podcast until just this week. So I watched her latest episode. She is an excellent knitter, and she talks about her knitting. She also talks about crochet and sewing. So it's a multi-craftual blog or video podcast. I'm going to continue watching some of her videos to see how they are. I've only watched the one so far, but I am encouraged and I'm going to watch some more for sure. Okay, moving on. I want to show you that I have finished my husband's socks. There's one. And here's 2. Ta-da! I'm surprised I managed to finish them so quickly. Usually it takes months, but I guess I had some TV knitting time. So they are done, and I'm very happy about that, and I will tuck them away in my drawer until Christmas. It's basically a pattern that I just made up. I have my own pattern called Custom Knit Socks, which is a top-down pattern with a heel flap. But these socks are made toe up with a short row heel instead of a heel flap. So it's not really a pattern per se, it's just my own little recipe. I want to show you something else that I finished. My knitting club that I'm a part of donates baby hats to a local hospital every month. And I have a stack of hats that I've made. Here they are. These are all just plain stockinette. And then I had a little bit of yarn left over from the Lionberry shawl, which I used for a last baby hat. And then at one of our recent knitting Zoom meetings, one of our members showed this pattern. It's called the Ribs and Cables Baby Cap, and it is by Heather McVickar. I'll put a link in the show notes. I really like it. It's super cute. I tinkered with the top decreases, and I'm not happy with how they turned out. So I am planning on making this again, and I'm going to follow the directions in the pattern. Hopefully they'll turn out better than mine did. I also have no idea how many stitches the pattern calls for, because I just cast on as many stitches as would fit the repeat and the normal size that we make our hats. Our hats are usually between 4 and 5 inches wide, or 8 and 10 inches in circumference, to fit the newborns at the hospital. Excuse me. I used this Vanna's Choice Baby. Which is kind of, it's called worsted, but in my hands it works up more almost like an Aran weight. So I had only put 42 stitches on this one. Now the cables did draw in, probably more than I expected. So the next one, well, a repeat is a lot of stitches. So if I add a repeat, it would be too many stitches for a baby hat. So the next one I may just go up a needle size and see how that works out. But in the meantime, this would be perfect for a preemie. And if it's too long, I can always turn up the cuff. Really cute. And next, I finished my stranded gloves. Here they are. They're awesome. I love them. They turned out perfect. As I mentioned before, I changed the cuff. So this pattern is Annemor 15. It's from the book Selbuvata, and the pattern is called Annemor 15. I did change the cuff out. I used the pattern from another glove in the same book. And in the pattern, the pinky had a different pattern on it than the rest of the fingers. But I liked the pinky pattern better than the pattern that was on the rest of the fingers. So I just substituted the pinky pattern onto the rest of the fingers so they all look the same instead of being different as in the original pattern. I made a mistake on the thumb. The thumb, as I did it, are striped lines, It's actually supposed to be a checkerboard, which I didn't even realize until I had finished the first glove, and I looked at it, and then I looked at the glove in the picture and at the chart, and I'm like, oops, I read that chart wrong. But it looks fine, and I was not going to change it. I did run out of the burgundy yarn. Fortunately, I had in my stash another ball. I thought it was going to be close enough in color that you can't even tell, but I was wrong about that. So I ended up having to do one finger and one thumb with the second ball. And you probably can't see it on the video, but it is a different color. Yeah, I think you can see it a little bit. It is a different color. Oops. Looking at the balls next to each other, I thought they were close enough that it wouldn't matter. If I had known how different it was going to be, I probably would have done one mitten with the one ball and then the second mitten with the second ball. But it doesn't matter. They're for me. Nobody cares, and probably nobody would notice if I didn't say anything. I have still quite a bit of the other yarn. This is the eyeling yarn left over. And this, I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's another Cascade yarn, Heritage. So these are finished. And now, so what I'll do, when it starts to get cold in the fall, on the cooler days, cooler days, I'll wear just the gloves. And then when it really gets cold, then I put the mittens on over top, and then my hands are toasty warm. They make great summer projects because they're small, quick to knit. All that wool doesn't sit on your lap like it would with a sweater or an afghan. It's fine. And what am I working on now? Since I finished the pair of socks for my husband, now I've started a pair of socks for my daughter. This is another Cascade yarn. This is Heritage Wave. And it's a gray. Does it have a color? Graphite. It's a gray marl. And as you can see, it kind of goes from dark to light to dark to light, which I guess is why they call it wave. And I think it looks really pretty in the skein and wound up here in the cake. But in the sock, actually it looks better in the video than it does in real life. In real life, it just looks like gray, which is fine, but in the skein, I feel like, oh, there should be so much more movement going on, but I'm not really seeing that in the sock, which is kind of, I'm not happy about. Now I'll make them and I'll give them to my daughter and she would love them and they'll be fine. It's just not quite what I was expecting. So I'm not quite halfway done the first sock. And she's the opposite of my husband. Of course, he has monster feet. She has little feet. I think she wears a 7 or 7.5 shoe size. So these will go quickly. That's all I have for today. I hope that you are well, that the virus is keeping its distance from you, that you are getting involved where you need to be involved. A lot of some states had primaries again this week, and we'll be having conventions over the summer, and then we'll have elections in the fall. I encourage everyone to vote. If you have any comments, any suggestions, if you've finished anything, let me know. Put it down in the comments, and we'll keep in touch. Take care. Bye-bye.